The Red Baron returned to the front in the middle of June. 6 weeks out of the fighting had left him both physically and psychologically rested, and he was ready to get back into action. The time he'd spent at home had nearly overwhelmed him for all the attention he'd received. A good portion of von Richthofen's leave had been taken up with official duties, official parades, round after round of posing for photographs with various dignitaries, an audience with the Kaiser, and appearances before school children and military leaders. Wherever the Baron was slated to appear in public, he was greeted by throngs of admirers and well-wishers. The highlight of von Richthofen's brief vacation was a special invitation to hunt bison on the centuries-old estate of Hans Heinrich XI of Lower Silesia. Hunting on this estate was a very rare privilege and an honor usually reserved for the royal family alone. After the hunting excursion, it was back to Berlin for another endless round of presentations. Von Richthofen, ever shy and not completely comfortable with all the adoration, had managed to get home to Schweidnitz most weekends, where he could relax away from the public eye. These quieter times also enabled him to begin writing his memoirs, which would eventually be published under the title of Der Rotkampfflieger, the Red Battle Flyer. It wasn't just von Richthofen who wanted to get back to the front. From the time he left operations at the end of April, there had been a notable decline in the overall scoring of the Jagdstaffeln. In addition, German losses seemed to be on the increase, and a memo from the Kaiser himself expressed an interest in having von Richthofen return to his unit and set things right again. By the time Manfred finally reported back to Jasta 11, there had been two notable changes in the squadron. One was a new home airfield. On June 10th, the Jasta had moved to Bavashov, Belgium, northeast of Courtrai. The other change was the aircraft the squadron was now flying. The Albatros D3s had been replaced with the newer Albatros D5. While visibly very similar to its predecessor, the D5 offered some improvements, including a 10-mile-per-hour speed increase. Unfortunately, as the German flyers would soon learn all too painfully, this newest fighter from the Albatros family would be plagued by repeated problems caused by a structural weakness in its lower wing. Back at the front, von Richthofen wasted no time getting into the swing of things. His 53rd victory, the first since the end of April, was an RE-8 artillery spotter that he sent down in flames on June 18th. On the 23rd, it was a French-built Spad fighter. The following day, he shot down a new two-seater the British had recently introduced, the de Havilland IV, a machine capable of carrying 460 pounds of bombs. Von Richthofen had been leading a flight of his squadron's new Albatros fighters when he came upon a pair of the new bombers, escorted by the Sopwith triplanes of Naval 10's Black Flight, led by Raymond Collishaw. In the brief but spirited scrap, Collishaw scored a hit on one of the attacking Albatrosses, which broke up in the air. Von Richthofen's vanquished de Havilland fell on a nearby German airfield, where it crashed onto a hangar and erupted in a fireball. On the day von Richthofen bagged his 55th enemy machine, it was announced by the High Command that he had been chosen to lead what would be Germany's first fighter wing, Jagdgeschwader 1. JG-1 would be made up of 4 squadrons, Jasta's 4, 6, 10, and 11, and would operate as an independent unit under the command of von Richthofen. The formation of a fighter wing was announced as a reaction to the recent deployment of vast numbers of new British squadrons to the front. The new Jagdgeschwader would operate from a single airfield, and all the supporting equipment and personnel would be designed to be highly mobile, moving up and down the front as the need dictated. As for the Baron's replacement leading Jasta 11, Karl Allmenrode had been selected to fill von Richthofen's position, but when Allmenrode was killed on the 27th, Kurt Wolff was picked to lead the squadron in his place. Frail but easygoing, Wolff had been awarded his Blue Max in May for shooting down an impressive 27 enemy machines in 7 weeks. Despite being barely 21 years of age, he proved to be a fine squadron leader, and when he was killed in combat 2 months later, his victory tally would sit at a respectable 34 kills. Von Richthofen had barely taken charge of his new command when he himself was shot down with a wound that would remove him from combat for 6 weeks. On July 6th, Manfred was leading a group of his scouts when he spotted a formation of 6 FE-2s from RFC No. 20 Squadron, midway between Ypres and Armentières. For von Richthofen, attacking the slow, lumbering Fies had become nearly a routine action. Of his 57 confirmed kills at the time, 11 of them had been over these very plains. As the Baron calmly moved into position on the rearmost enemy machine, he suddenly felt a great blow to his head as one of the rounds fired by the Fies observer found its intended target. Temporarily blinded by the wound, von Richthofen's fighter dropped out of the fight in a spin, and as the altitude unwound, his vision gradually began to return. Weak and disoriented, he managed to set his Albatross down safely in a large field, where German troops removed him from the plane and rushed him to St. Nicholas Hospital in Courtrai. It had been a close call for von Richthofen. Although his skull had not been penetrated, a large hole, about 10 centimeters long, had been gouged in his scalp, exposing the white bone underneath. The Red Baron would not return to combat until the middle of August. For propaganda purposes, his near-fatal encounter and subsequent absence from operations would remain a closely guarded secret kept from the public.